Right. So, this is Theresa Mayonnaise. A little, very short clip from a film I made trying to encourage young people to vote a few weeks ago with my dear friend Juliet, who's here today. I'm showing this GIF partly because, of the situation, the context, but also because I feel like animation is an amazing medium in terms of bringing your wildest fantasies to life, however physically impossible. So this is a rotating aubergine. It's made up of 100 single frames. Each frame is made in a totally different way. So some are hand-drawn, some are painted, some are physical, so some are made of wood. Some are actually made of elastic bands. It's from a project that I released last year called Spin the Aube, which is an interactive website where you can spin 9 different aubergines, and each aubergine has its unique soundtrack. So go spin the aubergine. It'll get me a couple spins on my spin counter. But I'm also showing you this because I feel like it communicates quite a lot about my practice. So I'm really interested in hybrid as a moving image maker, and I really like merging the digital and the traditional, and different traditional animation techniques. So some of these frames are CGI, and I really enjoy making things that I have no clue what they will look like until they're done, which was exactly how this thing worked. I think a good place to start, because some of you might not be familiar with my work, is to just show my show reel, which is 1.5 minutes of various clips of live action and animation from the past 5 years. Cool. So, I've predominantly made short films and music videos in my career thus far. This is a still from a music video I made where we covered a girl in chips and made seagulls attack her. And then sausages and made dogs attack her, and grass and made Shetland ponies eat off of her. I really enjoy music video because I love working with audio as a starting point. It's an amazing framework upon which to hang visuals, and it never ceases to kind of inspire me and guide me. The music I find a really, really useful starting point. I'm going to show you some clips from music videos over the last 5 years. So this, again, was a hybrid. This is a mixture of live action and hand-drawn animation, which is an overlay, which I really enjoy. It's called rotoscoping. I'm quite a kind of rigid drawer, and the whole drawing on top of live action frees me up a bit because you're essentially tracing. Here's another example of rotoscoping, but in this example, we've actually removed the dancer after drawing around her. And here again, live action and animation hybrids, but in this example, the live action artist is actually interacting with the animation in a more precise way. So he performs for the choruses, and then he intros the verses by actually bringing in the line. And also in this clip, you'll see that animated content dribbles down his top. We used a chroma blue top on green screen to key out the blue, so we could almost use it as like a Teletubby screen, and put animated content on his chest as well. Again, live action animation hybrids. Again, green screen background and chroma blue patches on the costumes, which enabled us to drop different things on the costumes on the background. Very fun. And then this is another live action animation hybrid, slightly different this time. This is stop motion replacement. So these models are all physically made, and there was 25 of them. So this is all still photographs. And then we had we were animating her do the kick, so we were using her like a puppet, almost, the dancer. My other main love, really, is animated documentary. And I think it's a really powerful genre for a number of reasons. One being that I feel like with animated documentary, you're able to visualize the emotional and internal in a way that potentially sometimes you struggle with in live action. I also think that sadly as human beings, we're all quite judgmental. And when you see a talking head in a documentary, traditional live action documentary, you sometimes make judgments and cast aspersions. If you just have a voice, you still make judgments, but the animation serves as a kind of protective layer over your subject, and empathy, I feel, is more able to flow from the audience to the speaker. And also, when you're making an animated documentary and you're interviewing people and gathering interviews, people are way more open and honest with a voice recorder than they are if you put a camera in their face, which is another massive positive. I made a really quite complex animated documentary for Selfridges on sustainable fashion with the wonderful Sarah Andreasen, who's an incredible illustrator. And I feel like actually maybe the audio in that film in some ways was slightly dry, and we really pushed the visuals. So in this sequence, they're literally just talking about pesticides, but we're making a flower morph into a head that then becomes pipes, that then becomes water. So you can really lift factual content as well. So what I'm really here to talk about is Private Parts. Alex mentioned it. It's a film that I made last year in association with INT and Channel 4. It was a film that explores sexual equality and masturbation. And I'm kind of going to talk you through how this film came to be. So, when I was about 15, I was ill, and I watched Cruel Intentions. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Cruel Intentions. It's quite steamy. And let's just say, I was feeling quite horny, and I embarked upon trying to achieve my first orgasm, which many of you will know if you have vaginas or if you've encountered vaginas, is actually quite complicated. I cracked it, I think, on day 2 or 3 of my illness, and was ecstatic, clearly. Trotted into school on the Monday, feeling like I'd had experienced untold wonders. Sat down at my canteen table with my closest female group of friends in a kind of central London state school, and told them what I'd done. And the general reaction was one of disgust. And I'd gone from having this extremely amazing, joyful, celebratory experience to feeling really dirty and ashamed. It was my first experience really directly of sexual inequality, because we knew boys had been masturbating since, they were 11, sometimes together, sometimes to WWF, or at least in my primary school. So, we all had boobs, we'd all come on our periods, we were all definitely feeling sexual feelings. So, it was bonkers to me that I felt so judged by my peers, who I also really cared about. I wanted them to experience and get to know their bodies, and experience what I'd experienced. So, that got me thinking. Then when I was 19-ish, I saw this piece of work by an incredible artist called Paul McCartney. No. Jamie McCartney. Come on, it's quite close. So yeah. This piece of work made me realise that I'd actually never really seen vaginas in anything other than a medical or a pornographic context. And it actually made me feel really excited, because I'd always felt a bit self-conscious of my labia. And this is only a small section of this piece. It's huge, and the diversity was really comforting, and just made me realise that I'd basically been absorbing penis drawings on everything since primary school, and I had never actually seen a kind of vagina that was anything other than my own. I then very proudly started reading the vagina monologues on the tube. And, this gets quite a lot of stick, and I'd seen it kind of ridiculed on like Friends and in various popular culture. And I was ready for kind of this really boring feminist rant. And actually, it was so entertaining. It made me laugh. It actually made me cry. The way it was organised was really accessible. So there's like a section on the orgasm, there's a section on pubic hair, there's a section on the clitoris. And it really inspired me and moved me, and it was really accessible, and I highly recommend it to anyone. Then this app was released called Happy Playtime. And you'll see this quite cute but quite strange vulva character, which is the clitoris and the vagina that kind of, runs around kind of trying to communicate how to have an orgasm if you're a woman. And it's very sweet, and it's very practical. And it was banned from the App Store in one day. When apps like this, Wrist-Off, where you try and see how many strokes you can get in 10 seconds, still exists and is still readily available. The other thing is just, as I was making my way in and out of work, the advertising we're all surrounded with, but I started feeling really worn down by the tone of the adverts. And I started thinking about it quite deeply. And I feel that in Western advertising, femininity is defined as passive and vulnerable and ready to have things happen to you rather than do those things to yourself or other people. And I feel like I started to think that's the opposite of what's conducive to good sex for everyone. Then this campaign was released, which I think is essentially gang rape. She looks barely conscious, so passive. She could be dead. And then same here, again, another kind of gang rape scene. So I designed some jolly vaginas. And my first approach was working in this cutout style because it got me really thinking about shape and simplification in terms of I inevitably, in the end, wanted these to be speaking or moving and be characters. So it was quite playful, had a lot of fun with bum holes and pubes. Here are some penises. But then I realised that if I was to make these actually animate, I'd have to do 12 different cutouts for every second, and I would probably be working on the film till the day I died. So I moved on, and I moved back to 2D, because also I feel like that there was maybe a little bit more potential for kind of more interesting characterizations, and a bit more detail, and it would be more effective in terms of production. During all of this, I interviewed about 40 people for the film, some of them good friends, some of them people I knew from the past, some of them people I met on the street. And I had put together a 15-second soundbite for these two, who you'll see in a minute, who in my mind are two of the stars of the film. And I'd animated 15 seconds. I settled on this design for Sam and Luke, who definitely don't want their names in this presentation. And then it's nice that I got in touch and said, you know, Channel 4 are doing random acts again, there's a tiny budget, £2,000, have you got anything? And it was such good timing because I'd already made this 15-second chunk and I sent it to them with a treatment and they okayed it, which gave me such momentum because it was a platform for something that I really cared about. I then contacted 12 of my favourite animators in the world, and 11 of them agreed to take a character, and you know, we were splitting £2,000 between 11 or 13, I think, in the end. And I was so humbled. These were people who I'd written about in my dissertation, who I just couldn't believe it. It was absolutely amazing. And I thought, you know, because I'm essentially exploiting you all of you do your own style, but we should use a colour palette just to bring a bit of the aesthetic together. So this was the colour palette. I then had one round of genital feedback with each of the moving image makers. This is an example of vagina feedback. Which actually was quite sensitive because most of the people who ended up working on the film were men, and you didn't want to act like you didn't think they'd ever seen a vagina before. But that being said, this guy, who's amazing, he's a BAFTA winner called Will Anderson, check out his work, he's amazing. He often animates birds, so I felt like the vagina lips became a bit like a bird's beak. So I was trying to like rein that in a little bit, but like sensitively. Also, I just want to show you my personal favourite section from the film, just moving without sound. So this is by an amazing designer called Mark Prendergast, who I think still lives in Amsterdam. This links into what I said about the beginning about hybrid and my aubergine and stuff, because this, to me, is the perfect hybrid of traditional and digital. He actually rendered this vagina in really crude CGI. Basically, in this section, the guy's talking about how vaginas are like Rubik's Cubes, and you can be with a girl for years and not really work out anything. And so he rendered this CGI Rubik's Cube, and then went back, printed it out, and traced it and used it as a stencil. So he was sending me pictures of him in his bedroom with like thousands of pieces of paper on the floor, all spray painted. So this is traditional and digital, and I think it works really beautifully. So without further ado, let's watch the film.
Clit.
I don't know, for JJ.
Pants or a bikini that's too tight, and Sudocreme. I think it's speculum, because feminist groups used to meet and with a speculum look at their own and each other's vaginas. So just explore what is down there, that down there.
Yeah, Rubik's Cube. Sometimes it's like quite straightforward, sometimes it doesn't work like that. You can be with girls for years and not really understand. No, just joking.
A vagina could never be ugly to me because it's a vagina. It's a vagina. That's it.
What girls have got to realise.
I like
be ugly to anyone.
I like the mystery of not knowing I know that each and every vagina is going to be different.
Try to find.
Clitoris, I think, orgasm.
Hot heat.
When a girl is about to...
It's the thing that you touch and
I
you
got
feel
that
like you're
snap
playing them like
memory.
a puppet, you know what I mean?
I get that snap. I remember that shit. That eye rolling, clenching, looking back feeling.
The pearl in the pearl inside those shells in the sea, you know? Shiny, shiny, shiny.
While we're foreplaying and this and that and we're about to have sex, I've got to pull a hair out of my mouth. That is not sexy.
Oh, I don't care. I'm down.
You eat them.
I'll eat that.
Girls' vagina has to be shaved, like good, it has to be nice and fresh.
They just need to shave and tell them to put their clothes back on.
Oh, don't want to be one of those girls. Better get a bikini wax. Because, you know, don't want to be, like, seen as disgusting.
Why do you need to be bald down there? Is that necessary? It's a lot of money.
It was definitely a thing of thinking that there was something wrong, or that it was a dangerous thing to do, especially on your bathroom floor at 5 o'clock in the afternoon after you've eaten an avocado.
If you can't even do it on your own and feel comfortable on your own, how are you supposed to orgasm with someone else?
Masturbating, obviously I'm thinking about someone I fancy, or like Michael Fassbender. Do you know what I mean? Like you can make it happen, and yet when you've got an actual beautiful boy in front of you, why aren't I connecting? Like for me, that's kind of a joke. Like if someone's like, "Did you come?" I'll be like, "Oh, it's not," and then we move on.
Just started to feel like I could touch myself while I was having sex to help myself get there, and that wasn't an insult.
More bean flicking, please.
How do you do it? Have you done it? Because they were just like, ew. It's like you wouldn't talk about it out loud. Because, you know, probably be embarrassed.
Don't get depressed, like, be who you are. You do yourself, you get me? Good on you girls, just be good. No depressive moments, just stay good. If you do feel lonely, just give man a call, 0721 739. Done.